an octopus. I'm full of octopuses.
Yes.
Grabbing the plane and bringing me down.
Okay.
Yeah, it was so great. And we were just like, we're in America.
London was cold that night, the kind of cold that seems to hum beneath the city lights, vibrating through the concrete and glass. Outside Abbey Road Studios, candles flickered in the rain. Fans had gathered quietly.
It doesn't matter.
But I think
Ozzy Osbourne, who just died, bless him,
holding posters that read, "Thank you, Ozzy." It had only been 2 weeks since the Prince of Darkness had passed away, and the world still hadn't adjusted to the silence. His voice, ragged, thunderous, unmistakable, had been the soundtrack of rebellion for half a century. But now all that remained were tributes, memories, and the ache of an empty stage. Inside warm living rooms across Britain, television screens glowed with another kind of light, a far less kind one. Roger Waters, co-founder of Pink Floyd, sat in a chair across from a journalist and, with that unflinching stare, uttered words that no one expected to hear so soon after Ozzy's death. "I think we've over-romanticized him," Waters said. "Ozzy Osbourne wasn't the architect of heavy metal. He was its salesman." The interviewer shifted awkwardly, sensing the sharpness in his tone. But the damage was already done. Within hours, headlines multiplied like wildfire. Roger Waters questions Ozzy Osbourne's legacy. Waters dismisses the Prince of Darkness. The internet caught fire. Fans who had spent days grieving were now raging. It wasn't just about disagreement, it was about respect and timing, and the unwritten code of the music world. You don't tear down the dead, especially not one of your own. Clips of Ozzy flooded social media. Grainy concert footage, his trembling smile in interviews, his cracked laugh that somehow made you love him more. People quoted his lyrics as if to resurrect him, to fight back against Waters' words. "All aboard the crazy train," one fan wrote under a viral post. Others simply said, "Not now, Roger." Musicians stayed quiet at first, unsure how to respond. After all, Roger Waters wasn't just anyone. He was a rock philosopher, a man known for dissecting fame and truth. But the backlash was too strong to ignore. Ozzy had shaped generations. His darkness had liberated people. His chaos had inspired millions to embrace the raw and the real. And while fans mourned, Waters seemed intent on dissecting his myth. It felt cruel. It felt personal. Then, out of the noise, came a voice that silenced everything else. Calm, unmistakable, and heavy with age and wisdom, Ringo Starr. The last living Beatle drummer, one of the few remaining architects of modern rock, had been asked about Waters' comments during a brief appearance at a charity event in London. Cameras clicked. Reporters leaned forward. Ringo paused, smiled softly, and said, "It's disheartening to see anyone diminish a fellow artist, especially one who can't be here to defend himself. That goes against the spirit of music." His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't dramatic. It was measured, almost fatherly, the kind of tone that made every word land like truth. The room went silent. Even those who hadn't agreed with Ozzy's wild ways nodded in quiet agreement. Ringo's statement spread faster than any tweet. News outlets replayed it in slow motion, overlaying his words with black and white photos of Ozzy on stage. For a moment, the world seemed to exhale. Here was a man who had seen it all: fame, chaos, loss, redemption, and yet he still believed in the brotherhood of music. He didn't need to shout. His silence had weight. His words had authority. The comment section under the clip was filled with gratitude. That's class. Ringo gets it. This is what respect sounds like. Meanwhile, Roger Waters remained defiant. When asked about the backlash, he shrugged it off. "People don't like honesty," he said. "We've turned mediocrity into martyrdom." That line made headlines too, but not in the way he hoped. Fans accused him of arrogance, of bitterness, of jealousy even. And suddenly this wasn't just about Ozzy anymore, it was about the growing divide between legends. Between those who carried empathy and those who carried ego. Robert Plant, the golden voice of Led Zeppelin, stepped in next. Known for his restraint, Plant rarely commented on controversies. But this time he did. A single post on X, once Twitter, read, "So disrespectful." No hashtags. No explanation. Just 2 words that echoed louder than any press release. Within hours, the post had been shared over 1 million times. Fans called it "the moment rock's true gentleman spoke." Together, Ringo and Plant represented a kind of moral compass for the generation that defined music itself. They weren't defending Ozzy because of genre or friendship. They were defending the principle that artistry deserves dignity even in death. Across the Atlantic, American radio stations held tribute hours for Ozzy. DJs played Iron Man and Changes, weaving in clips of his interviews where he spoke about fear, faith, and the madness of fame. Between songs, callers shared stories, how his music helped them survive depression, addiction, heartbreak. One woman said through tears, "I grew up with Ozzy. His music scared my parents, but it saved me." These weren't just fans. They were witnesses to an era that believed in rebellion with a heartbeat. Behind the scenes, industry insiders whispered about why Waters had done it. Some said it was envy, that Ozzy's myth had outgrown his musicianship. Others thought it was ideology, that Waters saw Ozzy's fame as the commercialization of rebellion. But whatever the reason, the timing made it unforgivable. The man had just been buried. Sharon Osbourne, his widow, hadn't even made her first public appearance since the funeral. The moment deserved silence, not criticism. Ringo, meanwhile, wasn't seeking attention. He'd spoken once and let the world interpret it as it would. That restraint only made his words more powerful. Fans began sharing clips of the Beatles performing With a Little Help from My Friends, overlaying it with footage of Ozzy on stage, smiling and shouting to the crowd. The message was clear. This is what music is supposed to be: connection, not competition. By the third day, the debate had taken over the music world. Panels on rock radio discussed the Waters-Osbourne controversy like it was a generational referendum. On one side, art is truth no matter how harsh. On the other, art as empathy, even when it demands restraint. In between those two ideologies stood Ringo Starr, a symbol of balance in an industry built on chaos. As the uproar continued, an old clip resurfaced online, an interview from 1984 where Ozzy talked about the Beatles. "They changed everything for us," he said. "If it weren't for them, none of us would be here. I used to try singing like John, drumming like Ringo, never could, though." The clip went viral again, decades later, as if time itself had been waiting for the perfect moment to remind everyone. Even the Prince of Darkness had been a fan first. That video alone silenced many of Waters' defenders. The cultural clash grew deeper. Commentators on late-night shows began analyzing what it meant when icons from the same generation turned on each other. Was it pride? Was it fear of being forgotten? Or was it something simpler? A misunderstanding of what legacy really means? The older generation of rockers, now in their 70s and 80s, had become living monuments. Their words weren't just opinions anymore, they were history in motion. Ringo's response, brief as it was, reminded the world that greatness isn't just measured in albums sold or tours filled, it's measured in grace. He didn't argue. He didn't insult. He defended the sanctity of music itself. Fans began printing his quote on posters and t-shirts. That goes against the spirit of music. Those words became a rallying cry for an audience that had grown tired of negativity. Meanwhile, Robert Plant's two-word post gained mythical status. Analysts broke it down, fans dissected it, journalists replayed his tone. So disrespectful. It was as if he had spoken on behalf of an entire generation that built the foundations of rock and now watched it being eroded by ego. In interviews that followed, Plant didn't elaborate, but sources close to him revealed he'd been close to Ozzy in the early 70s, when both bands, Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, shared rehearsal spaces in Birmingham. There was a quiet understanding between them, one old friend said. Different styles, same soul. By week's end, Waters found himself surrounded by a storm he couldn't control. He refused to apologize, releasing a long statement defending artistic honesty. "I'm not here to please the dead," he wrote. "I'm here to speak truth about art." But even that defiance felt hollow. His bandmates distanced themselves. Old collaborators stayed silent. The rock world, for once, seemed united, not by sound, but by silence. In pubs and record stores, people talked about how surreal it was to see their heroes at odds. "These guys built rock." As the week faded, one man said, one image began circulating on the dark side of the moon. A split-screen photo showing Ringo Starr and Ozzy Osbourne now they're rebelling against each other. The caption not everyone saw it as tragedy. Same Some saw it as evolution, proof that even legends wasn't an official statement or a magazine cover. It was fan-made, but it captured everything this moment represented. Two icons of chaos and creativity, bound by the same invisible thread, music's eternal pulse. By the time the weekend arrived, tributes to Ozzy had grown louder again, drowning out the controversy. Charity concerts were planned, candlelit vigils filled with his songs, and somewhere in Liverpool, Ringo attended a quiet memorial with a small group of friends, musicians, producers, people who'd lived the same storm. When asked by a journalist if he had any final thoughts on the matter, he smiled gently and said, "Ozzy gave people something to believe in. That's what counts. The rest is noise." His humility contrasted sharply with the arrogance that had started it all. And as the clip aired that night, fans flooded social media with one sentence: "The Beatles just ended the debate." Because in a world obsessed with outrage, it wasn't the loudest voice that mattered. It was the one that carried grace. As dawn rose over the city, newspapers printed the story in bold letters. Ringo Starr defends Ozzy Osbourne after Roger Waters' controversy. But what they didn't capture was the quiet truth beneath it, the sense that an entire era was drawing its final curtain. The legends of rock were fading one by one, and the question wasn't who played louder or spoke harsher. It was who left behind light. Ringo had, Ozzy had, and Roger, for all his brilliance, had reminded the world that genius without compassion is just noise. The debate wasn't over, but something deeper had been awakened. Maybe that was Ozzy's final gift to music, forcing the old guard to look at themselves again, to remember what it was all for. Ringo spoke for unity. Waters spoke for pride. But by morning, the headlines made it clear this wasn't over. It started quietly. No press conference, no explosive statement. Just a ripple that spread through the digital static of the music world. Pink Floyd fans were arguing with Black Sabbath devotees, while Beatles loyalists filled the gaps between them, preaching peace amid the noise. A strange kind of war had erupted online, threads stretching thousands of comments long, old vinyl collectors debating with teenagers who'd discovered Ozzy through streaming playlists. It wasn't just about music anymore. It was about respect, about legacy, about how words could cut deeper than sound ever could. And in the middle of it all, Roger Waters decided to speak again. He appeared on a late-night podcast filmed in a dimly lit studio, cigarette in hand, the familiar weight of arrogance sitting comfortably on his shoulders. "Truth shouldn't die with politeness," he said, exhaling smoke. "If we can't critique our idols, then we're worshiping ghosts, not musicians." The host smiled nervously, unsure whether to challenge him or simply let the man dig his own grave. But Waters wasn't finished. Ozzy was part of an image machine, he continued, a symbol of rebellion that became a brand. And I think we confuse noise with depth far too often. Within hours, his words were everywhere again, spliced into reels, analyzed by pundits, condemned by musicians. The timing couldn't have been worse. Just days earlier, Ringo Starr's quiet defense had restored a sense of dignity to the conversation, reminding the world that art isn't a competition. It's a shared language. Now Waters had set that bridge ablaze. His comments painted him as a man out of step with empathy, trapped inside his own bitterness. Ringo's camp didn't respond directly this time. There was no statement, no interview, no reaction, but a close friend of his spoke anonymously to the press, saying, "Ringo doesn't fight with words. He plays them." The line became an instant quote, retweeted, shared, painted on fan art that spread across social media. It captured everything people admired about him: quiet strength, dignity without the noise. Meanwhile, Robert Plant remained silent for days after his first remark. His two-word post, "so disrespectful," was still echoing across the industry, but people waited for more. They didn't have to wait long. During a charity gala in Birmingham, Plant finally spoke. Standing before a modest crowd of musicians and fans, he looked tired but composed, his voice weathered yet commanding. "When I was a boy," he said, "we all dreamed of making music that would last. Some of us did. But what lasts longer than music is how you treat those who made it." The audience erupted in applause. He didn't mention Waters by name, but he didn't have to. Everyone knew. Plant had shared stages, roads, and whiskey with Ozzy in the early 70s. Their paths had intertwined in the smoky clubs of Birmingham before either of them were global names. "We were all just trying to be heard," Plant recalled softly. "We didn't compete. We created. That's what people forget." The room fell silent, and for a moment, it felt as though the golden age of rock had returned, alive again in his words. Outside the venue, rain drizzled against neon lights. Newspapers plastered with headlines about the feud. Old posters of Sabbath and Zeppelin were fading on the brick walls, ghosts of a time when everything felt infinite. Inside record stores, people held vinyl sleeves like relics, talking about how the music meant more than the drama ever could. It wasn't nostalgia anymore. It was preservation. The world was remembering why these legends mattered in the first place. But Roger Waters didn't stop. He posted again online, writing, "Art without criticism is propaganda." It was his attempt at justification, but it only deepened the divide. Critics began dissecting his motives. Some called it intellectual honesty. Others called it ego disguised as insight. One respected journalist wrote, "Waters doesn't critique art. He dismantles reverence. And in doing so, he forgets that reverence is the only reason art survives." By contrast, Ringo and Plant's restraint spoke louder than any press release could. Their silence became a kind of resistance, a refusal to engage in a war that only diminished everyone involved. That silence inspired fans to act. Across social media, a viral trend began. Fans editing montages of Ozzy performing Crazy Train alongside clips of the Beatles come together. The caption, "Different voices." Same spirit. Millions watched, cried, shared. Music, once again, was speaking for itself. In the following week, several artists came forward with their own thoughts. Alice Cooper, one of Ozzy's oldest friends, called the debate embarrassing. Gene Simmons posted a photo of himself and Ozzy from the 70s with the caption, "Legends build, not break." Even Elton John commented briefly in an interview, saying, "We're supposed to lift each other up, not write each other's obituaries while the body's still warm." The unity among musicians was undeniable. For the first time in years, rock felt like a family again, a fractured, chaotic, aging family, but a family nonetheless. As the dust settled, a strange kind of clarity emerged. Fans began to see the bigger picture. This wasn't just about one man insulting another. It was about what happens when time catches up to legends, when the fire that once fueled rebellion turns into reflection. Ringo represented that reflection, an acceptance of legacy with grace. Waters represented the bitterness of seeing one's influence challenged or overshadowed. It wasn't a feud, it was a mirror, showing two ways to face the inevitable, compassion or cynicism. In an emotional segment on BBC Radio, a veteran host summed it up perfectly. "What we're witnessing," he said, "isn't a fight between men. It's a conversation between eras. The 60s taught us hope. The 70s taught us rebellion. The 80s taught us survival. And now, the 2020s are teaching us humility." His words resonated. Because behind every headline, every controversy was a simple truth. The heroes of rock were aging. Their legacies weren't just being written by history books anymore, but by how they treated one another in their final chapters. Somewhere in the English countryside, Ringo recorded a short video message for an upcoming music documentary. It wasn't meant to address Waters, but it did anyway. He sat in his studio surrounded by drums, photos of the past lining the walls. "You know," he began, smiling faintly, "music's supposed to bring us together. I've been around long enough to see it do that, and the opposite too. But I still believe, really believe, that songs outlast arguments. They always have." He paused, looking straight at the camera. Music should never divide. It's what keeps us human. The clip went viral before the documentary even aired. It was shared by artists half his age who had grown up idolizing these giants. Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day reposted it with the caption, "This is how legends lead." Even Paul McCartney liked and shared the clip with a simple heart emoji, a silent show of unity between the last two Beatles still walking the earth. As the controversy began to fade, Roger Waters found himself increasingly isolated. Concert promoters quietly removed his name from lineups. Publicists grew wary of working with him. The comment sections under his posts turned sour, filled not with praise but with disappointment. "We respected you," one fan wrote, "but somewhere along the line you stopped respecting others." It wasn't cancellation. it was consequence. Meanwhile, tributes to Ozzy continued. A massive benefit concert was announced at Wembley, featuring artists from every era: Robert Plant, Ringo Starr, Metallica, even younger bands like Arctic Monkeys paying homage to the man who'd inspired them. Tickets sold out in minutes. On the night of the event, the air felt electric. Thousands of fans held candles and phone lights, their voices merging into a single chant. Ozzy! Ozzy! Robert Plant took the stage first. Dressed in black, his silver hair catching the lights, he began with a simple message. For the man who turned darkness into music, he said, and made us all a little less afraid of it. The crowd roared. He performed a haunting version of Stairway to Heaven, blending the final verse with lines from Changes. When he finished, there were tears in the audience. Then Ringo walked out. The cheers were deafening. He sat behind his drum kit, gave a small wave, and began a slow, emotional rhythm. The crowd recognized it instantly, with a little help from my friends. But as the song built, the band shifted, weaving in riffs from Paranoid and War Pigs. The fusion was unreal, a Beatles heartbeat carrying Sabbath's soul. By the end, the entire arena was singing, crying, celebrating. It wasn't a concert anymore. It was a farewell. Cameras caught Ringo wiping his eyes after the final chord. He stood, took the microphone, and said, "He made the world louder." And sometimes that's all it takes. The audience erupted into applause. In that single moment, all the noise, all the division, all the controversy dissolved. There was only unity, pure and unfiltered, born from sound and silence alike. The next morning, newspapers across the world carried images from the concert. Headlines read, "Rock's Greatest Unite for Ozzy." Ringo and Plant heal the divide, and one that stood out above the rest: "Respect returns to rock." Even some Pink Floyd fans admitted the moment felt like closure. As for Waters, he released no further statements. His silence for once was deafening. And maybe that was his quiet acknowledgement that he had gone too far. Sometimes silence is the only apology left. Weeks later, a mural appeared in Birmingham. It showed Ozzy on one side, microphone raised, eyes wide and wild. On the other side were Ringo and Plant, both smiling faintly, the words, "Legends protect legends," painted between them. Fans left flowers at its base. Someone scrawled in small letters near the bottom, "Music should never divide." And that's how it ended, not with another fight, but with understanding. The feud had burned through the headlines, but what remained was something deeper. A reminder that the people who built rock and roll weren't superheroes. They were human, flawed, proud, vulnerable. But when it mattered, they stood up for each other, because that's what real legacy is. It's not in the awards or the numbers. It's in the moments when one legend protects another. When ego falls silent and empathy takes the microphone, the lights dim. The stage is empty again. Somewhere an old vinyl crackles to life and Ozzy's voice growls through the static. The beat follows, a familiar steady rhythm. It's Ringo's kind of beat. It doesn't shout. It simply endures. Legends fade, but respect echoes forever. Louder than any song. Longer than any feud. And if you believe that music still means something, if you believe that voices like Ozzy's, Ringo's and Plant's still deserve to be heard, then don't let their message die in silence. Share their story. Keep their rhythm alive, because in the end, that's what music was always meant to do. Remind us that even in the noise, there's harmony waiting to be found. Ozzy may be gone, but the world still hums with his riffs. If his music ever made you feel alive, don't just remember him, celebrate him. Subscribe and keep the legend of the Prince of Darkness alive.